exciting to see how things are happening. And I love seeing how you're using resources from other institutions and building on like community generated resources that already exist to do this work. So I think this is really great. And I look forward to seeing you at another forum. I already anticipate it. So thank you both, Emily and Dawn. And then I'm going to turn things over to Jamie to introduce our next presenters, who can go ahead and start sharing their screens as they'd like.
Oh, great. There we go. Thanks very much, Jessica. Our next presentation is PUI customization for seamless user experience. I'm really excited to introduce you to two of my own colleagues. We have Emma Jaud, who is a web developer who joined University of Delaware Library IT team 2 years ago after graduating from University of Texas at Austin with a BSA in mathematics and additional certificates in elements of computing and UX UI design. Emma uses her expertise and creativity to bring all of the University of Delaware web properties into compliance with university branding guidelines, web accessibility standards, and mobile-first design trends so that library patrons can have a seamless user experience as they utilize various platforms used by the University of Delaware Library Services and Collections. Colleen Estes serves as coordinator, web support, and development for University of Delaware Library Museums and Press, providing planning, project management, and development for all web properties. Colleen joined the library IT team 7 years ago after many years owning a web design company who developed WordPress websites for small business clients. She graduated from Carnegie Mellon University with a BS in computer science and mathematics and has an extensive background in programming and database design. The University of Delaware IT team worked with Atlas to update the default public user interface PUI template files for their hosted ArchivesSpace website to customize the design and look of the PUI using CSS code. This work enabled the PUI to be in line with the University of Delaware website branding guidelines and provide a more seamless user experience for researchers moving between ArchivesSpace and other University of Delaware library websites. The library IT team members, Emma Jaud and Colleen Estes, will discuss the steps they took to configure the hosted UD ArchivesSpace template files in a way that allowed flexibility for future CSS styling updates. They will also discuss the reasons for customizing the look of the PUI, pros and cons of PUI customization, and the process for testing the customizations when an upgrade is needed. Thanks very much. Go ahead, guys.
Hi, everyone. Like Jamie said, I'm Colleen, and I'm here with Emma to talk about how we customize the public user interface for our hosted instance of ArchivesSpace. We started this process last year in the spring, I believe, and we worked with Jamie, who just introduced us, and also the tech support staff at Atlas, who made it very seamless and were easy to work with in this whole process. Our goal was first of all, for today's purposes, we're focusing on just the customization of the visual look of our public user interface. There is a lot that you can do as far as changing the entire layouts, changing, what's shown on different screens. But for our purposes, we're just talking about changing the styles, the fonts, the colors, things like that to make the instance of the public user interface look similar to other University of Delaware web properties. That was our goal. And the first question is, why did we want to do this? Why was it important to us? It is a guideline of our overall university Office of Communication and Marketing that all web properties that are related to any unit that's on campus follow the branding guidelines that are put out. And those guidelines are related to using the colors and using the fonts and graphics and that type of thing, so that all for the goal of everything being a seamless experience for users, that users can know as they're going from platform to platform across university properties or even third-party platforms such as this, that they're never concerned about what website they're on or the fact that they are or are not on a university-sponsored website. So that was our big why. And also we wanted to make sure that our web properties are all responsive and able to be viewed easily on all size devices, all types of devices and browsers, and accessible for all users, and to make sure that they can be read by screen readers and you know, any type of assistive device, to make sure that everyone equally can see our web properties. So those were the big reasons for wanting to customize the public user interface. And so the next question is, who can do this? Anyone with knowledge of HTML code, CSS code, and how to use template files. Those are the major skills that we took advantage of in customizing our public user interface. So if you have these skills, if you have a team member who has this knowledge, if you have an IT person or an IT team, these are all people that you can team up with to make this happen for your public user interface if you are interested in doing that. As you can see in the example that was, oh, if you just flip back, Emma, sorry. Or yeah, either page would be fine. But as you can see in the example, this is just one template file, and it's one that we did customize, as you'll see on the next screen. We customized this actual template file. And you'll see the HTML code here, to just move the logo, which by default is on the right-hand side of the screen. We just wanted to move it to the left-hand side of the screen to be more in line with our university branding guidelines. So that just involved taking the chunk of HTML code and moving it to a different place in the template file in that example. So we did that by working with Atlas Tech Support. Since we do have the hosted solution, we updated our template file and we worked with them to identify which file we needed to update by downloading the source, the application source. And there's a direct correlation between the public user interface views directory structure and the plugin directory structure, which is used to make these type of modifications. So we worked with tech support to figure out which file we needed to update, and then we made the changes and sent the file to tech support for them to upload to the server. And doing this, they do have to restart the application after they make these updates. So once we did that for the header file, we kind of came to the conclusion that we don't want to have to make too many template changes, that we would prefer to focus more on the CSS style changes to you know, do our best to make the application look like a University of Delaware web property. So in doing that, we realized that we could put a CSS file on our own server that we could modify as needed and just reference that file in a template file that's hosted on the Atlas servers. So again, that just required finding out which file we needed to put that reference into. And there was one header file that we used to just put a one-line reference to a CSS file on our own library server. And after that, there's an example right there. We created the file on our own server. We requested Atlas Tech Support to update the one template file to add that. We added the reference and sent that to them. They put it on their servers. And after that time, we were able to make the modifications to our own CSS file as needed, excuse me, to update the styles on our website. So it made it very easy after that one change to be able to make all the changes going forward. And I think that's it on the screen. So we'll move on Okay, this is you, Emma, right?
Yeah, it's me.
I'll send it on to Emma.
So as Colleen was saying, we were able to upload our own CSS file to our own server and then have Atlas add it to the template. So then on our own server, we can just update the CSS file as we would like to. Some key points of this process is because we're only updating the CSS file, we are not changing any of the classes that the Atlas system has already created for their PUI templates. We're strictly only modifying them. So because of this, the inspect tool on your web browser is going to be your best friend in determining what classes go with what elements on the template. And this is a pretty time-consuming process and requires quite a bit of patience. So here's an example of one of the elements from our finding aids. It's the search display after a user searches something on the finding aids website. So we took it from what it was before to after. And I will show you the process of how I was able to create what we have now versus what it was before. So I will quickly stop sharing my screen and go to another one really quickly. So here we have our finding aids without the custom CSS attached to it currently. And I did this by right-clicking on the mouse and selecting the inspect tool here. Now I wanted to, for the purposes of this demo, I will update the navigation bar we currently have. So, gotta get all my mouse in the right order. So since we want to update this nav bar here, I'm gonna right click or this little tool up here to like hover over the element we would like, then click on it and it'll highlight it here in the inspect tool. So now we're within the element we would like. And I come down here to the element style. We find out that the class for it is top-bar/bar. And in here to like test out my styles, I just put in background and then I would like it to be blue. And then because down here in top bar, they have an important, which makes this the top level. So if I would like my style to be the style that shows up, I put that in as well. And in this case, you just repeat this process with any CSS you would like to be there. And just keep on repeating that process until you get the design that your university brand is, or what you have decided is how you would like to style everything. Like I said, this is a pretty time-consuming process because you have to go through each element to update it on how you would like it to look. But I think the trade-off for it is quite good. And now I will throw it back to Colleen to explain our pros and cons of this system.
Yeah, so as Emma said, it can be a time-consuming process depending on how extensive you want to go with your CSS changes, and how stringent your university or branding guidelines may be that you are wanting to follow. So the pros of customizing the user interface in this way are, of course, an improved user experience. As you could see from our before and after, and from our comparison with our main library website, the colors and styles look similar. Users are not surprised or, concerned when they go to when they come to the finding aids, they, you know, it looks just like another university property. They recognize the features and the elements that, you know, like buttons and drop-down menus, and understand where they are and how they're supposed to be used and things like that. So it's just a more seamless user experience. We also did a lot of customization of the responsiveness of the different elements on the pages to make sure that they show up nicely on all screen sizes, smartphones, iPads, you know, smaller devices, large monitors, etc. We just wanted to make sure that our screens looked good for all users on all devices. And then lastly, for pros, improved accessibility. Our university went through an accessibility audit last spring and summer, around the same time that we were working on this customization. And it really opened our eyes to what we needed to be looking for and what we needed to prioritize as far as accessibility, which could be related to colors, it could be related to screen readers and keyboard, being able to use keyboard input to navigate around entire web pages instead of relying on the mouse all the time. So things like that, we needed to make sure we addressed also in our styling changes and CSS changes. So those were the pros, and those were the reasons that we worked so hard on this. The cons of taking this, of making these decisions to go, you know, to extensively customize the PUI were that anytime a new version of ArchivesSpace is released, as we migrate to the new version, we need to make sure that our CSS changes don't break. Sometimes the template files change for ArchivesSpace, and that can cause the classes to change. It could cause, you know, where things are within the layout to change. And we did do one migration last year at one point, and we did not have to, we had very little, if any, updates to do to our CSS at that time to bump up to the next version. But we will be doing a more extensive upgrade in the near future, which I'm sure will require a lot more extensive changes to our styles and classes. It just sounds like the template files are going to be more extensively different in the next version. And so our plan is for that to have a test system, a development system, a sandbox area type of system set up so that we can really thoroughly test our styles and make any changes that we need, and have an updated CSS file that we can provide to Atlas for, you know, that we can upload at the same time that we upgrade to the next version. So that's the plan. And if anyone has any questions, we are happy to answer them.
Thank you. Thank you both so much. And I'll go ahead and say, Jamie's put into the chat, we were so pleased with how it turned out. Thank you for being patient with us during the design phase. And then also, Jamie noted that you migrated to 3.5 very smoothly, and 4.0 is in the future. So that's wonderful. We do have one question in the chat, so we'll go ahead and answer that one. And then in the interest of time, we'll move on. So if any other questions come in, if you guys can answer those, like type the answer. But Kevin, I think Kevin's looking for some validation. Can you confirm how annoying it is to check for the plugin page updates when it's time to upgrade? Have you developed strategies for making that process easier?
Yes, it is definitely a trial and an error type of process, and agreed that it could be annoying. But since we minimized the updates to the template files themselves, at least so far, we have minimized them. That made the process much easier for us. But the strategies, we've only had to go through one upgrade so far. We're about to go through a more extensive one, like I said. So the answer to your question is no, we have not yet developed strategies for making the process easier, but we probably will in this upcoming iteration of this work. But yes, it's definitely a process to check for updates, and having the test system or sandbox available to us should make it, and the time to devote to it should make that much easier.
Thanks. And JB notes in the chat that you're not a very plugin heavy application, so that may change that depending on your use case. But yeah,
That's
thank you
very
both.
true.
Thank you both so much. This was great. It was nice to see a different approach to the PUI. The planning team did a wonderful job putting together today's agenda. I've got to say, what a great series of presentations so far. We are going to go ahead and move into a break. We're going to take the full 10 minutes. We are a few minutes behind schedule, but we will come back at, we'll say 7 minutes after the hour. So we will get started 7 minutes after the hour. Thank you, everybody. Hi, everyone. If you're just joining us, we are going to come back from break in 2 minutes. So we're going to be coming